welcome to this episode of the Drink Less, Live Better podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Williamson, and I'm really glad you're here with me. Today we are rethinking the bucket list. There's a certain image that comes to mind with the phrase bucket list, not least the things we must cram in before the end of our lives. But often the idea will include skydiving over somewhere dramatic, a photo at sunrise in Machu Picchu, maybe swimming with something large and slightly alarming, a balloon ride over the savannah. It all feels very cinematic and yet also a bit, exhausting. For many of us, life already is a full calendar. Work, family, friendships, health, the quiet ambition to feel content and unkerfuffled. Adding a towering list of grand experiences can feel less like inspiration and more like another column on the to-do list that never quite gets done. The idea of a bucket list often arrives wrapped in pressure. Maybe we begin to think there are things everyone ought to experience, places everyone ought to see, moments that somehow count more than others. Suddenly, a gentle Saturday walk by the river doesn't feel like enough. The cinema on your own or a simple dinner with friends becomes ordinary in comparison to imagined adventures elsewhere. Instead of treating life as a series of peak moments to be collected, let's consider the possibility that the texture of everyday living holds its own quiet brilliance. Not every meaningful experience needs altitude, danger, or a passport stamp. Let's think about what actually brings a sense of aliveness. It might be the first sip of tea before anyone else is awake in the house. The satisfaction of finishing a book that lingers in the mind for days afterwards. The feeling of moving your body in a way that feels good rather than punishing. These are not small things. These are the things. They are my things. Maybe they are your things too. A traditional bucket list can pull attention outward towards what others celebrate or photograph well. A more personal approach might turn your attention inward. What feels fun to me right now? What sparks my curiosity? What has been quietly waiting for a bit more space in my diary? For some, it might look like learning something new without expecting mastery. Pottery, perhaps, with its slightly wonky bowls and grounding feeling of clay. Did you see my Instagram pictures a couple of years ago of my very rubbish but equally fun pottery? Yeah, no mastery was had there. Or maybe it's learning a language, just enough to order a coffee and exchange a few words when travelling. There's a lightness in doing something simply because it's interesting rather than because it earns a place on a list. Connection often rises to the surface in midlife in a different way too. Friendships deepen, conversations stretch beyond the surface. Instead of aiming for once-in-a-lifetime experiences, there can be quiet joy in regular rituals, things we do over and over with the people that we really want to hang out with. A monthly supper club, a standing walk with a friend where you take the same route each time. These moments rarely make it onto glossy lists or Instagram posts, but they will shape your memory in a lasting way. There's also something lovely about letting go of the idea that time is running out in a dramatic sense. Life can carry a narrative of urgency, as though everything must be done quickly before some invisible clock strikes. That urgency can push choices that don't quite fit. Instead, we can find room to choose experiences that genuinely resonate rather than those that simply sound or look impressive. I'm not saying travel doesn't have a place. Of course it does. Seeing new landscapes, tasting unfamiliar food, hearing different rhythms of life can be fulfilling. But the difference will lie in the intention. Instead of chasing destinations because they appear on popular lists or photograph well, travel could become more about how it feels to be there. A quiet village on the coast in the off-season might offer more restoration than a whirlwind tour of somewhere else. Slowing down allows places to unfold more naturally. And creativity. Sometimes after years and years of being tucked away, this really is one to pull out and explore. Writing, painting, gardening, even rearranging a room will bring a real sense of renewal. These acts don't need to be shared widely or turned into achievements, big things to tick off. They exist for the experience itself. A gentle reminder that expression can happen in whatever form you want it to. And of course, there's space for small acts of courage, saying yes to something slightly outside your comfort zone, setting a boundary that protects energy, making a change that has been considered for a long time. These moments won't look dramatic from the outside, yet they can feel significant on the inside. No bungee jumping adrenaline required. When everything is distilled down, a life well lived often leans on consistency rather than spectacle. A series of days that feel mostly aligned, occasionally surprising, and generally being kind to oneself. Doesn't mean that life becomes predictable or dull. It simply means the focus shifts towards what sustains rather than what dazzles. So instead of a bucket list pinned somewhere with ticking clocks and lofty goals, imagine a different kind of list. One that changes often. One that includes things like noticing the seasons, nurturing relationships, exploring interests at a comfortable pace, and allowing room for rest. Let's all choose a path that feels personal, no grand declarations required, just a steady unfolding of days that, when looked back on, feel rich in their own way. Not every meaningful experience needs altitude, danger, or a passport stamp. Thank you for being here with me today. You can find me on Instagram at drinklesslivebetter and online at drinklesslivebetter.com, where you'll find lots of supportive resources. Check out today's podcast show notes for a link to a hidden episode that will help with your 5 p.m. cravings and details about my one-to-one life coaching and sober coaching programs. And P.S. I believe in you.